Hello everyone, Nika here with your Daily Neuro Nugget. Happy Monday, and we have another weird document to cover. Today I'm going to be covering Law Supplemental Narrative Document 194. And we know that there is no footage that we know of yet of Brian Kohberger being interviewed, which I found exquisitely fascinating because we know that Moscow PD has all kinds of footage for other things, but when it comes to these massive arrests, these supposed confessions, there is no footage. And now that all the documents have dropped, we have some very disturbing information, right? And you have to bear with me whether you think you are a guilter or a truther or whatever side you are on. Bear with me because we are all learning as we go. Every day I read a new document, well, I have the capacity to also change my mind on how I view this case, right? So let's just go over this document first. This document was, of course, typed up yet again by one of our favorite detectives, right? Detective Brett Payne. And this is a transcript of the audio of the interview that was added to the case file after Mr. Brian Kohberger was arrested in PA. And this, in my opinion, these are my opinions, my theories, these are for entertainment purposes only. They really give us a more roundabout view, a roundabout way of how we should see Mr. Kohberger. Because so far, all we've gotten to experience is the narrative that the media is pushing. And this is very telling in my opinion. So I'm just gonna skim through it for you guys. It is a 4-page document and I'll do my best to cover the important parts, right? On December 29, 2022, ISP Detective Sergeant Gilbertson, FBI Special Agent Shirley, and I arrived in PA in preparation for the service of the arrest and search warrants for Kohberger and his family's residence at Albrightsville, PA. After several coordination meetings, Detective Gilbertson, S.A. Shirley, and I drove to the Pennsylvania State Police Barracks at PA to await the arrival of Kohberger after his arrest and to interview him upon his arrival. At approximately 2 a.m. on December 30th, 2022, Kohberger was brought to the Stroudsburg Barracks and placed in an interview room. The interview was recorded on the built-in video system at the barracks, as well as Detective Gilbertson's pocket recorder. So it's a pocket recorder. And they say a video, but until we see that video, it doesn't exist, right? That's what I'm gonna say. That's what Bill Thompson said. It doesn't exist. Detective Gilbertson and I were in the interview room present. This is a summary of the interview with Kohberger, and it's not verbatim transcript of the interview. A full interview transcription will be attached to this case file. So let's get to it. Let's get to the important part and how they're questioning Mr. Kohberger. Remember, this is Mr. Kohberger already arrested. It's at the barracks. He's probably tired. He's probably whatever. And that's part of a really good interview, right? You want to arrest the person and then you want to basically wear them out. You want to catch them when they're tired. Why? Because anytime we are tired, we are hungry, we are emotional, we are scared, we are shocked. Remember, they were flying helicopters over his parents' house. All of those things, all of those stressors will break a person down, meaning that they're more likely to be honest, right? They're more likely to crumble and spill the beans, spill the truth under pressure. So this is Mr. Kohberger after a helicopter has been flying around his home, basically under all stressors possible, right? When I stated who I was, Kohberger stated, "You do look familiar." And I'm assuming Mr. Kohberger said that because Mr. Kohberger had applied at MPD. Remember, he wanted to help small local police departments. In my opinion, that is why he stated that. He probably had a previous run-in with Detective Gilbertson. Detective Gilbertson and I prepared our note-taking materials, and Gilbertson read Kohberger his Miranda rights advisement. Gilbertson asked Kohberger if he understood his rights, to which he replied he did. After collecting Kohberger's personal information and inquiring about medications, Gilbertson and I went to speak to Kohberger. Gilbertson asked Kohberger about the SWAT operation at the house, to which Kohberger replied he was concerned about his parents and his dog. Again, this is somebody who just had helicopters flying all over his house. Remember, they could have literally arrested Mr. Kohberger at any other point in time. We know that he had been out doing his typical jogs. We know he's into fitness. We know he likes to run. They could have arrested him at any point in time when he was out and about outside of the home, but instead they chose to fly helicopters over his parents' house at 2 a.m., fly right down and arrest him, crash, break windows, break doors. Why? Because again, when you arrest somebody who you think may be, for whatever reason, they thought Mr. Kohberger could have been involved in this crime, you want to find them, you want to put them in a stressed state, right? So this is Mr. Kohberger, stressed, and what is the first thing that is coming to his mind? Wow, his parents. Wow, his dog. Do you think for a second that if Mr. Kohberger was actually psychopathic, sociopathic, had a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder, which are all those things basically that I just said to keep it simple, that he would be concerned about his parents and his dog? You think that's the first thing that's going to come to his mind if he's a psychopath? I don't think so, right? Because again, people who are psychopathic they don't care about really anything. So this is a person who's coming across as, wow, he gives a shit. At the very least, he cares about his parents and his dog. Gilbertson asked Kohberger if he was going to Washington State University, to which he replied he was. We made small talk with Kohberger about sports for some time. Again, this sports part of the interrogation is made with a lot of men because it's small talk, right? You want to make this person feel like, look, you're stressed, you're tired, you're hungry, we just crashed your entire house, broke doors, broke windows, had a SWAT team destroy your entire home of your parents, but let's talk about sports. Let's make you feel at ease with us because we're your buddies. We're here to help. We're here to help. Who else has said that? Allegedly, somebody at 1122 King Road. Anyway, they made sports small talk with Kohberger. Kohberger stated he did not follow WSU football much, but he was a baseball fan. Detective G asked Kohberger if he had only been at WSU for one semester. He confirmed this and said he came to WSU with his father on July 1st. Kohberger then went on to say he was a first-year PhD student in criminal justice and criminology. Detective G asked Kohberger what the process was to apply for a PhD. Again, they know this shit. They know what the process is. They don't really care. They're just trying to get him to feel comfortable, to open up, to start talking, right? Because that usually means what? That a person's gonna divulge whatever they did. They asked Kohberger what the process was to apply for a PhD. Kohberger stated he applied to two places, UC Irvine and WSU. Kohberger said he was going to graduate with his master's in criminal justice from DeSales and was inspired. Kohberger then asked if it was okay to engage in small talk, like we were, to which we replied it was. Again, Kohberger's like, why are they bullshitting, right? Why are they here asking about all this stuff that doesn't matter? They're asking me about PhD. They're asking me about sports. He's over here like, should y'all be wasting your time and mine? And of course, the detective was like, yeah, we can we're totally allowed to engage in small talk, even though we just wrecked your parents' house, right? After briefly mentioning he was strengthened by the fact his mother and father were okay, Kohberger said he applied to aforementioned schools before they did not require the GRE exam. So this is what it sounds like. It sounds like Mr. Kohberger did not want to talk. He was concerned. Why all the small talk? You just destroyed my parents' house, broke windows, broke doors, had helicopters flying around my house, and you want to talk about sports? You want to talk about how did I apply at a PhD program? What's going on, right? And then, of course, the detectives are like, let's make him feel a little bit better. Let's tell him his mom and dad are perfectly okay, that they're doing great. What kind of parent is going to be doing great after their home got destroyed and their only son got arrested, right? So after they said, yeah, your mom and dad are cool, Kohberger then opened up, right? He said, yes, I applied to 2 aforementioned schools because they did not require the GRE exam. And from what I see in my experience tutoring kids who are neurodivergent, neurospicy on the spectrum, dyslexic, is that a lot of us neurodivergent folk do not do well with exams. We're not good exam takers. We may have IQs of 130 or above, some of us, and still not good exam takers, right? So that's probably why Mr. Kohberger did not look into other schools, right? He wants places that don't require this exam. Kohberger then spoke about the GRE for a brief time and then said he was accepted by WSU. Detective then asked Kohberger what led him down the road of becoming a professor. He stated it was because he loved being in college and stated knowledge was far more important to him than money. This is very telling, in my opinion. This is a person that is trying to do the right thing. He's trying to teach people. He loves the school life. He loves learning. He loves teaching. That's what he cares about. That is his priority. In my opinion, people who want to be professors, for the most part, are probably pretty decent human beings. The pay is not that great. The path to be a professor is a very lengthy one. It's a PhD program, so roughly 8 to 12 years, depending on what you're wanting to teach. And he said, yeah, that's more important to me. It's more important. Teaching, knowledge is more important, more so than money. Kohberger added, WSU had a good program to study under, and then said, you guys know all about this more than likely. Kohberger then asked questions about U of I and other universities before stating he didn't know much about Idaho or Washington and had not left the tri-state area much. Kohberger then returned to speaking about his focus on learning and how he thought he could obtain his PhD. Kohberger then said he recently returned home to see his family. So basic interview, right? Gilbertson then asked Kohberger about his time at DeSales University. Kohberger spoke for some time about his time at Northampton Community College and DeSales. Kohberger then spoke about how he became interested in criminal justice and stated he thought about being a police officer, but did not want to make that commitment unless he was absolutely sure. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Somebody who thinks things through. That's very telling, again, because most people that become cops, it's like pretty brief training to be a cop, right? It's a few months and then you're out your way. You're a law enforcement officer with a weapon and you're supposed to uphold the law. And there's a lot of responsibilities that come with that. But the majority of people don't really think about that job thoroughly. And here is Mr. Kohberger saying, yes, I wanted to be a cop, but I wasn't sure. And I believe that's why Mr. Kohberger had applied to do that internship in the early days, because he was like, is this something I actually want to get into? Maybe just, what better way to find out that if I want to be a law enforcement officer than to do a brief internship and see, dip my toe in the water, if you will. Kohberger then returned to speaking about his focus on learning. And Kohberger then continued to speak about his education and universities, also spoke more about the process to get into a PhD program and how competitive it can be. Detective Gilbertson then asked Kohberger about his move to Washington. Now, this is where it gets interesting, right? Because so many people have questioned Brian Kohberger driving across country when he could have flown. Why didn't he fly? Why did he have his dad come and drive with him? Why was he being weird? And on top of that, why is Kohberger taking all these weird routes? It doesn't make any sense when he could have just taken XYZ route. Why is he taking all these weird routes? Was he trying to get away from the FBI? Was he trying to lose the FBI? Did he know he was being followed? And this is what Kohberger said. He said he drove across country and wanted the challenge of driving cross country and experience it with his father. And what better way for a young adult to experience the world, first time away from home, really living far away, the other side of the country, than to have that bonding moment with your father while driving cross country. But we know so many guilters read into that and they're like, That's weird. That's mentally unstable. He's obviously a dangerous individual because if you were normal, you would have driven a plane, right? Kohberger then said he took a different route back home with his father for Christmas break to avoid snow. What do you know? Taking weird routes to avoid the snow. Wow, what an incel. What an incel. Oh my God. Kohberger spoke about his troubles and the risks of such travels in winter. And we know it's very dangerous to drive through winter roads, especially up there. I don't know if you guys have ever driven in those areas like Colorado, up north, those Idaho, North the Dakotas. It gets very dangerous. Some of those places, I don't recommend driving during winter at all. It's scary. You're like skating on ice, right? So this man is saying he drove to avoid the snow, to avoid the risks of traveling in winter. Kohberger then began to speak about the beauty of the environment and its relationship to God and a higher power. And I have always known that Mr. Kohberger is a very religious man because we have seen some of the posts that were shared by his mother, right? Very religious woman, and usually, well, usually it's taught in the home, right? We spoke about this for some time, and Kohberger said he was raised Christian, but was always a skeptic, except when confronted with the beauty of the natural world. Detective asked Kohberger if he had ever been to the Pacific Northwest prior to coming to WSU, and Kohberger said he had not. And that's interesting to me that they were asking that, because I just wonder if they were trying to pin some other crime on him. We know that they tried to pin that other woman who was unalived back in PA. They tried to pin that crime on him, right? At least the media did, but we know that they found nothing there. And there had also been several similar crimes, similar to the IDAHO4, committed in the Pacific Northwest, right? I've talked about those back in 2.5 years ago. I talked about all of those crimes, and he'd never even been there. So I just think this was detectives trying to get whatever information, trying to pry, trying to pin whatever else on Brian, even if they didn't have evidence, because this was going to strengthen the case against Kohberger. I asked Kohberger if he and his father made any stops along their way back to Pennsylvania. He told me they visited Colorado, but the main goal was to just drive. Kohberger then told the story about seeing an unmarked police car near Kansas City speed up behind him, catch up to another vehicle, turn on its emergency lights on, then drive away. Kohberger thought this was strange and unsure why it occurred. So this, to me, tells me Mr. Kohberger is not stupid. Yes, he's autistic. Yes, he's neurodivergent. Yes, it is true that people who are neurodivergent have better pattern recognition than neurotypicals, meaning that he knew he was being followed, okay? You keep getting pulled over left and right. Cops are asking weird questions. They're telling you all these things. Then there's another unmarked police car following you, catching up to another vehicle, and then turning off your emergency lights, or turning on the emergency lights and then driving away. Yeah, this is strange. This was probably somebody that was supposed to also be on Kohberger's ass, right? In my opinion. Detective then asked Kohberger about the job he mentioned. Kohberger stated he was a teaching assistant and talked about how busy he was and how the funding package that comes along with being a teaching assistant is what makes the extra work worth it. Kohberger then discussed ongoing projects with WSU PD and Pullman PD. How in the world does Mr. Kohberger know about these ongoing projects with WSU Police Department and Pullman Police Department? From the very beginning, guys, we had a feeling that he had more involvement with these police departments than we were being told. And now we're hearing that he knows about their ongoing projects. How much did he know? Who did he piss off at the police department? Is that possible? That somebody got a little bit butthurt, a little bit annoyed. We know that egos are very fragile, right? And Mr. Kohberger is very intelligent, very neurospicy, and that means what? That means that you're very direct. When we are neurospicy, guys, we're direct, we're blunt, we say what we mean, and we mean what we say. And that just means that you tend to piss off a lot of people, because we're not gonna soften the blow. You know, if you ask us if you look fat in that dress, we're gonna tell you the truth. Maybe you do. Maybe you do. And not everybody likes that. I'm gonna say 99% of people don't like that. So just makes you wonder, who did he piss off? He's, you know, involved. He understands, he knows what's going on with projects, with WSU Police Department and Pullman Police Department. Kohberger then spoke more about being a TA, is essentially assisting the professors in the department. Detective asked Kohberger if he would be a TA again next semester, and Kohberger replied he would. So it sounds like they arrested him. They did all this, and they're making it seem like we're not gonna take you in. You know, you're still gonna be a professor if you want to, or a teaching assistant if you want to. Kohberger then stated he understood why we were engaging in small talk, but we appreciate it if we explained to him what he was doing there. Exactly. Like, he's just like, all right, that's great. You guys are, you know, destroying my parents' home, flying helicopters above me for hours. And then you're asking me about my PhD. Doesn't make any sense. Let's get on with this. What is it? He said he wanted Gilbertson to tell him. Gilbertson said we were there because of what occurred in Moscow, but did not provide any further detail. Gilbertson asked Kohberger if he watched the news. Kohberger said, I watched the news. Gilbertson then asked Kohberger why he thought I looked familiar. Kohberger said he wasn't sure and stated I had a familiar face and looked like someone he used to know. Interesting. So why does he know Detective Gilbertson? Why is his face familiar? Gilbertson then said, we were there because of what happened in November at the University of Idaho campus. Gilbertson asked Kohberger if he knew what that was, to which Kohberger replied, of course. And of course you're going to know. Who the hell hasn't heard of the IDAHO4? Especially when you live right there. Everybody and their mama, right? When prompted to elaborate, Kohberger said it was an incident we had been investigated for. How long has it been? Kohberger said there were probably several incidents, and then said he was aware of a homicide because of a WSU alert he received. Gilbertson asked Kohberger when he received the alert. He said he wasn't sure, but thought it was sometime the previous month. Gilbertson confirmed that was why we were there and asked if Kohberger wanted to talk about that. Scary. Scary. I'm just like putting myself in the shoes of Kohberger. I'm like, that would be so like you're a goody two-shoes on the spectrum. They're bullshitting, you know they're bullshitting, and then all of a sudden they drop the bomb, right? They're like, yeah, we want to talk to you about the homicide. Kohberger replied, well, I think I would need a lawyer. Kohberger then asked if we would explain to him what we were there for specifically, and added he was tired. Why wouldn't you be tired? They just crashed your house. And why wouldn't you ask for a lawyer? Again, there's so many people, guys, that see law enforcement. They're like, well, I'll just be helpful. I'll just be helpful. Never be helpful to law enforcement. As soon as you open your mouth and you're trying to be helpful, the odds of them trying to pin something on you are high. You know, always plead the fifth, whether you did it or not. There are so many people that have tried to be helpful to law enforcement. They don't plead the fifth. They start yapping, and then they're in a bad situation. And I know a lot of people say, yeah, but that makes you look guilty. Okay, I don't give a shit how it makes me look. But at the end of the day, you want to protect yourself always and forever, because cops and crooked cops are an actual thing. So don't trust anybody out there just because they have a badge and a gun, right? Kohberger said he was tired. Gilbertson again stated we were investigating the homicides of the 4 students and that we had questions and things we hoped Kohberger would help us understand. I'm sorry, but Detective Gilbertson, what the actual fuck? This is problematic, right? As soon as somebody tells you, I want to talk to my attorney, you, Detective Gilbertson, should have shut your fucking pie hole and should have gotten up from wherever the hell you were interviewing Mr. Kohberger, and you leave the room and you get him an attorney. That is your job. Your job is not to pressure him into talking. And that's what Gilbertson was doing here. He's like pressuring him. Well, we have questions. Well, we have questions about these homicides of the 4 students. We hope you can help us. Sir, he already asked for an attorney. Leave the man alone. Give him his attorney. Kohberger sat back and said he had the utmost respect for law enforcement, but stated it was a constitutional right to speak to an attorney. Thank God he has a background in criminal justice, because if it had been an average person in the street that doesn't have this type of training, most people would yap. They would yap. They would crumble under that pressure and say, "Well, I guess since they continue to ask me, I guess since the detectives are pressuring me, I need to open my mouth. I need to talk because they're asking me. They're saying they have questions." No, it is always your constitutional right to speak to an attorney, by the way. Gilbertson affirmed this. Kohberger then re-engaged and said the only thing he heard of Moscow was an alert that came to his phone. Kohberger then said he wanted to talk to an attorney. Gilbertson said we would stop now because Kohberger wanted to speak to an attorney. Finally, it took 3 times for them, right? It took 3 times for them to back the fuck away and let him get an attorney. Kohberger then asked where his parents were and where his dog was. Kohberger re-engaged again and asked what questions we would have for him. Gilbertson then asked Kohberger again if he understood his rights and asked specifically what Kohberger wished. Kohberger asked what specifically we wanted to talk about him and the reason. I told Kohberger he invoked his Fifth Amendment rights and we were not going to ask him any further questions. Kohberger asked again for the reason he was there, but added he would like to talk to an attorney. At this point, we concluded our interview with Kohberger and left the room. Crazy. Crazy. So, what do you guys think about this transcript of the interview? Because it sounds a lot like Kohberger was clueless. Kohberger had no idea what the hell was going on. This was last minute, and he's like, oh, this is about the murders. I'm telling you, all I got was an alert. That's it. Crazy. And I just wanted to point out, because a lot of people who are neurodivergent have amazing pattern recognition, it just makes me wonder about Detective Gilbertson. Mr. Kohberger is telling Detective Gilbertson, you have a familiar face. Where do I know you from? Do I know you from somewhere? Detective Gilbertson works at ISP. Where does Kohberger know him from? I feel like they've interacted before. And let's see. Because if I'm not mistaken, Detective Gilbertson retired. Oh, look at this shit. Was it Gilbertson? Maybe not. Let's see if I can find Gilbertson. Is he still working? By the way, guys, that was it. That's the end of the document. For all of you guys who are just hanging out still, I'm done. I'm done. I want to see. What does Gilbertson look like? Darren Gilbertson. It's just crazy. this psychopath that we're supposed to believe he is like concerned about his mom and dad, and he wants a lawyer. Wow, a psychopath with feelings who cares about his parents? Wow, a psychopath with feelings who cares about his dog. Psychopaths don't care about anybody. Just so you know. Just so you know, babe. Where is this Gilbertson sir at? Let's see. ISP, idaho.gov. It's very time consuming to find these cops from ISP because they have over 700 workers. It's a lot. Oh my God, there's so many of them. Wow. So many good old boys. So many good old boys here. Oh. Yee. I can't find him. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Either way, guys, I'm out for the day. Let me know what you thought about the interview. Please vote. If you think that this interview makes Mr. Brian Kohberger look non-psychopathic, he's concerned. He's asking if his parents and his dog are okay. If you think it makes him look like a person with emotions, please leave a 1. If you think this is concerning, that it's weird that he asked for a lawyer immediately, please leave a 2. Also, let me know what you think about him saying about his drives across the country. He was trying to bond with his dad. Road trip. Road trip. When I find a picture of Gilbertson, I'll put it in the thumbnail, guys. So thank you guys for joining me in today's live. Make sure to vote, leave a like, and see you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Mwah.